Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for today's webinar. I'm Lina Kazamel, Manager of Consumer Insights here at Sila, and I'm really looking forward to discussing today's topic, which is AI-led segmentation, that is digital audience segmentation. To start with, why are we looking at digital audience segmentation? Why is it important? Well, it's because this is one critical issue that many businesses deal with, which is understanding your consumers. But why is this such a challenge and how can we solve it? This is the focus for today's webinar, right? I want you to picture this just before we start. You're a business owner or a marketeer. You are really looking forward to connect with your target audience. You have a great product or a great service, but somehow you're really struggling to make it to make meaningful connections with your audience. Does this sound familiar at all to you? So this raises the question, do you really know your consumers? The thing is, consumers aren't a one-size-fits-all, right? We aren't a one-size-fits-all. We're all complex individuals. We have our diverse needs, our diverse preferences, and the different behaviors that we all engage with. And this is where the frustration really sets in. If you have like one key offering or a key product, a solution that you're offering your consumers, how do you tailor it in such a way that it reaches out to your consumers when you know you have such a diverse audience base? So let's look at it. Starting off, the first thing that we need to keep in mind is that it's important to understand that today, consumers are not just buyers of products and services. They're so much more. They are dynamic individuals. They have their own preferences. There's so much content out there that they really need to be careful and conscious of where they spend their energy and where they put their attention and their focus. There are so many options out there that they have to make these decisions on what is the best thing for me to buy or to, to get for me, for my family, for the context that I'm in, right? All of these different and diverse considerations mean that it's very important to identify how to resonate with them beyond just your product. So your product and your core offering is, of course, critical at the end of the day, whether or not, consumers will transition from being interested to actually buying it. But we need to take a step back. How do we get their attention in the first place? And then how do we hold their attention in such a way that our product resonates with them deeply enough for them to start their consideration journey? And this is what we will be discussing today. It's really about looking at consumers and understanding their psyche, understanding what are their motivations, what really drives their decisions. Like I mentioned, right? Because there's so much content out there, even if you have the greatest marketing campaign in history, right? If it's not targeted at the right consumers, in the right place, at the right tone, at the right time, you will not get the most effective return on your investment. So what do we do with this, right? We know that this is an issue. We know that it's a concern that maybe we need to identify and understand and how to resonate with consumers. But how do we do it, right? Well, before we go into how, let's look at a bit more into the why. Why segmentation in particular? Segmentation is important because, like I mentioned, when you truly understand your consumers, when you know what it is that makes them tick, what clicks with them, you can really tailor your products, you can really tailor your services and your marketing strategies to resonate with them. By understanding the different consumer groups beyond the category, so you've got the consideration of your consumers within the category, and then you've got the considerations of your audience beyond the category, right? Who are they? What do they like? What are they interested in? What are they really looking forward to? All of these, if you take them into consideration and you put them into play, you can really start delivering personalized experiences that ultimately drive their engagement with the category, with your brand, drive eventually loyalty, and ultimately, build or create this sustainable business growth. And that is really the end goal of segmenting your audience, to efficiently and effectively identify who's your target and say and identify what is needed to resonate with them. So we said that we need to understand them beyond the category, but what does that mean, right? We said psychographic. What does that mean? Let's have a look at some of the areas that we can really understand consumers beyond the category. So we've got elements like understanding their lifestyle, identifying their interests, hobbies, passion points. And then we can also understand within these hobbies and interests, are there, like the categories within the hobbies and interests, are there certain brands that they're interested in or brands that they have higher affinities towards? What really motivates them to take action? What are some of the challenges facing their everyday life? Let me give you an example to make this a bit more concrete. Say, for example, your consumer is really interested as part of their lifestyle and as well in their interests, that they're really interested in a very health-led lifestyle. They look for healthy alternatives for themselves, for their families. They're looking at sports and fitness as a way to really drive them forward, right? And this is a critical driver for this segment in all of this, the decision making. We can also identify within that health context which of the brands they're most interested in. These could be FMCG brands, it could be fitness brands, gym, it could be fashion. There are so many elements within these that we can find correlations between, right? Again, why does this matter? This matters because if, for example, you're a business and you want to target this health-conscious consumer or health-conscious segment, you can potentially look at the brands that they're interested in and have an agreement or a deal with them, like a cross-brand deal, right? And that can immediately drive them because they're familiar with that brand. They have an affinity towards that brand. You can direct your communication to focus more on the health benefits of your app, of your app or your service or your product, and hence attract them in. So there are many different cross benefits that you can get from really understanding beyond the category. Another thing that we can look at, for example, is their hobbies. What do they like to do? So one thing that majority of the people are interested in, for example, is music, right? Almost everyone likes listening to music. But what is it within music specifically that different segments enjoy? You'd have a segment that's significantly more interested in K-pop, for example. You've got a segment that's significantly more interested in classical music, whether that's instrumentals or older music, older artists, and really identifying those, really identifying these different, specifications even within the hobby. Say, for example, music, we mentioned K-pop, the audience, if your segment is more interested in K-pop, for example, your communication, the different ads that are generated on the different platforms can really have that element of K-pop as well. Or you could offer solutions, you could offer different, brand deals that enable them, to enjoy K-pop along with your brand, right? So this is how, at a very brief glance, you could really benefit from understanding how they, how they exist outside of the category, and to really integrate that into your own marketing, your own marketing plans, the ads, the communication, even, on the ground, in your packaging and the offers, and so on. So we've spoken a bit about how to use the insights when it comes to psychographics, but if we take a step back and look at all of the insights that you'd get from digital segmentation, the first way that you would use this insight is to really understand who do you want to target, right? Who are you targeting? You'd get an audience breakdown, then you'd have these split into your different audience segments. And within these audience segments, you also get sizes. How big is this audience, right? You've got a marker of, are they 50, 60, 70% of your audience? Are they only like 22% or even less? So you get the sizing of this audience. And this is important because it helps you identify, okay, this is my biggest audience. Okay, now I want to identify what about them, or how can I specifically target them? So it helps you fine tune and, have a specific target. Now, there's something very interesting when it comes to AI-led segmentation, specifically when it comes to who do you target. So we saw this example with one of our clients. We did a study and, we got the segment sizes. There were 5 different segments, and there was the biggest segment, which was there, very clearly. Initially, you would think, yes, that's a segment we want to focus on. However, because we're able to get historical data, so what we did is we went back 2 years and identified the same segment markers and got the sizing of the segments 2 years past. And what we identified is that this biggest segment today is also the fastest falling segment. So 2 years ago, it was much bigger than it is now. So we can clearly see a trend, or there could be a trend that this segment is falling down. So now, instead of directly investing everything for the long-term plan and deciding that, yes, I'm going to focus on the segment, rather you would track it and then figure out, okay, if the segment is still falling, then it doesn't fit in with your long-term investment plan. So you'd have short-term plan to target them now and benefit, but long-term you would identify who is your growing segment and how do you target them. So that's one key way to really use segmentation, digital segmentation in particular. After we look at who do you target, we would look at how do you target them. So we spoke about this briefly, previously, in which sense we identified their interests, their hobbies, their lifestyle, all of these psychographic elements, and the importance of integrating them into the content and into the messaging, so that it becomes a very strongly resonating communication with them, right? So you want to resonate with your audience. How do you do that? You do that by creating the content custom for each of your different segments based on what they need, all right? What resonates with them. That's really the key word here. What resonates, or what content resonates with them, that is how you target them. Taking that a step further, so you know who you want to target and you know what is the type of content and tonality you want to target them by. Now, it's critical to also know where and when do you target them, right? So by doing digital audience segmentation, one of the key things that really comes out is their digital behavior. The different segments, we really understand where do they spend the most time online, whether it's posting, whether they actually post, or whether they share the content, comment, engage, they like the posts, they like content. Where do they spend most of their time online on social media platforms, and when, right? We also get behaviorally, we have behavioral data on when do they post, at what hours of the day. And this is consistently, like, we get this data over a period of 6 months. So you get to have some sort of trend that you can track. And by knowing which platforms they're most effective on and when is the best time to really reach out to them, because that is when they're going to be online. By having these 2 pieces of information, along with content that's very resonant with them, you really start knowing, okay, you really start targeting your audience online. And this is really critical because right now the audience is primarily digital. Like, there is this huge shift of from traditional, offline marketing and advertisement to social media specific, or, there's online, but specifically social media marketing. So using digital segmentation, the digital audience segmentation, you get to know who's your audience, what they need, what you need to communicate and connect with them, and which platform specifically. Are they more active on Instagram? Are they more active on Facebook, TikTok? What do they like to engage with on these different platforms? Not only that, you also get to know how to influence them, right? So influencers are a huge area that you need to consider right now in this social media age that we're living in. And influencers really play a big role in impacting how customers really trust what's going on. They have these influencers that they enjoy listening to and they trust. So by identifying as well at a segment level who are the most followed influencers, you can identify, okay, if I want to target, segment 1, for example, this is my list of influencers that is followed by the majority of the segment. Segment 2, these are the other influencers that are most followed. So through this, this is how you can really put it into play, and take the insights, take the information, and action it. Great. Now, after you do all this, what are some of the impacts that you might have, right? You've done all the work, you've really resonated with them, reached them where they are. What does that mean? Or what are some of the impact or results that can come out for your business? So, some of these examples with regards to impact can be identifying which products or services your brand or your business needs to tie up with. What this does is essentially you expand the portfolio of your solutions. You have more tie-ups, whether direct brand deals, or brand tie-ups, or it could be just, subscriptions or offers, or like I mentioned earlier, K-pop. So for example, you could have a targeted promotion for 2 of your customers to win a trip to a concert in Korea or something, right? So that's one way to really target it. A second thing is you get to really enhance the loyalty. When, as a consumer, if I feel that brands are really targeting my specific needs and my specific wants, of course, within the category, but also they know who I am, they target me through, okay, oh, you like ABC? Well, we can offer all of this in one bundle deal with our promotion, right? Or with our offer. So this makes me feel like I can trust the brand, and hence, since I know the brand is there for me, I will look for it every time I'm seeking this solution. Another thing would be growth, right? By definition, growing, a business, for a business to grow, it needs to fill a need gap in the market, right? So by identifying white spaces, potentially, that consumers are facing. So there are comments around, oh, I wish how this business offered me a way to access A, B, and C on one platform, right? And on your platform, you already offer A and B. So by just identifying that simple gap, you could immediately grow your business by identifying this entire new need base. And this is quite significant, right? There's a lot more impact. These are just some examples, just to set it into context, right? So now we've looked, we've looked at segmentation at an overall level. We've looked at the benefits. We've looked at briefly the information areas as well as the impact. Now, the big question, how do we do it? How do we go ahead and do segmentation using AI? So there are 5 steps to it, 5 or 6. So the first one is identification, right? First, we need to identify what are the data sources that we are looking at. Typically, this would be around social media platforms. So social media platforms such as Twitter or X. You've got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And the benefit behind, or the purpose behind doing it on social media specifically, is that you've got historical data that you can use to really understand this consumer. And social media is really where people express who they are. They express their likes. They engage with content that they like. So Our primary data sources that are used in segmentation are a variety of social media platforms. Once we have our social media platforms, then we look at the audience. So everyone's online, right? And everyone is not the audience. So it's important to identify what is the topic that the audience would have engaged with at some point in the last 6 months. For example, are they talking about specific food, say, for example, rice as a category, or chips, or salty snacks as a category? Are they talking about delivery services? Are they talking about technology? So we need to identify who the audience is, but identify really the key topics that they should have engaged with in the past six months or so. And then using that, we create our consumer pool. What happens after we create this, after we identify the audience and create this pool that we have? Well, then we need to really filter it. We need to look at all of this consumer pool. We run AI models to look at, consumer demographics and really filter it down to be as detailed as possible. Why is this important? Again, while you can have the entire audience or just about anyone who speaks about it, everyone is typically not the right target audience. So for more relevant results, it's important to fine-tune it as much as possible. So there's a balance between having the entire universe of options and versus, having a very specific, demographic zone. And we need to find the sweet spot in between these two. And this is what we do during the filtering stage, which is essentially identify the specific sample that we're interested in. So we've identified this bit, like from our consumer pool, we've filtered it further to identify our target group. We've identified who are the profiles that are relevant. Now we start collecting the data and starting the segmentation process. How do we do that? From all the consumers that we've identified online, we start collecting their profile data. So any public data that they have, such as their bios, their names, any hobbies or interests they've mentioned. And we capture their historical posts. For the last 6 months, we capture all of their public posts. And this is really the critical element behind segmentation, right? By seeing what they've spoken about for the last 6 months, for the last half year, we can see across different moments of different days, of different months, what are all the things that they care about enough to write about, to put in efforts and put it out there. What do they care about? What is their online behavior all about? What do they spend time doing online? And this is where really the power of digital segmentation comes in. You get very rich, very spontaneous, unbiased behavioral data about what your audience is talking about and what they care about. And it's not just the posts that we get that we're able to collect. It's also what brands they engage with, what accounts they follow. We also have when I'm talking about engagement, it's about what posts do they like? What do they share, right? What do they comment on? All of that is collected. And then at that stage, we have this massive amount of data. This is when we start running AI models and data analytics in order to really categorize users into distinct groups. So there are multiple iterations that happen at this point, at which case we try to use machine learning to essentially identify patterns between all of these consumers. We get like tens of thousands of consumers, and there are similarities between them. And this is how AI really helps, right? As humans, as a team of people, it would be almost impossible to really go through millions of data points for like 20, 30,000 consumers and really identify the pattern between them. So this is where machine learning really, really shines, right? You get these clusters and you keep on running iterations until you find what's perfect, right? Like what are the actual segments that are out there? And this is really it with regards to segmentation, right? This is the process. These are the insights that you get. We've discussed the benefits, in terms of the information that you have access to. How do you use it, as well as the impact on your business. Now, I know that talking about this can be a little bit vague or in the air. So I've also created a bit of a segment deep dive, what a segment deep dive would look like. So you'd have, of course, multiple of these segments. And these are just some insights to really make sense of what the insights it could look like for a specific segment. So let's have a quick look at this, right? One of the ways to really bring a segment to life is having pen portraits. Pen portraits are essentially a creative way to really put the segment to life. As if I'm a person and I'm saying, I'm someone within this segment and I'm describing myself. This is my name. I am, 28 years old. I've been working for a while. I'm not married yet, but I'm engaged. So this is a milestone or a stage of life that I'm in. I'm quite busy. I feel like I'm quite busy, but it's a very fun time of my life. I really enjoy art a lot. Within art, I'm specifically interested, for example, in paintings as well as interior design. And you go further into the pen portrait to understand who this person is. Right? We speak about music, about time spent on social media. Which social media do I personally spend, the most time in, or does this segment spend the most time in? And then at the end, we also cover a bit about the category. So say, for example, the category here is food, for example, right? Food or like delivery services. So say, I get very excited, or I really enjoy the process of eating food. Food is a source of enjoyment for me. And while that's, the type of food I like changes over time, I've been enjoying pasta and some sandwich-based foods like, shawarmas or burgers. My parents, they're not like me. They don't eat the same food. So it's more of a personal thing, which means I end up using, ordering in, calling restaurants, using delivery services for most days. So this is just a general overview. And then you go into the details, right? One thing that we can get, which is quite critical really in understanding how you can reach them or how to communicate with the segment. This segment, for example, is primarily employees. You can see for 68% are working, they're employees. But one thing that's interesting is to look at the homemakers, which is 17%. Why is homemakers, in green, despite it being very clearly that employees are the majority? This is contextual. When we look at the entire segment base, say we have 5 different segments, we would see that this segment has a higher proportion of homemakers compared to the other segments. What this means is, if all of your segments are working, this segment has a higher proportion of homemakers, of people who are not working, right? Which means any communication or any targeting towards homemakers needs to be customized or personalized to this particular segment, needs to be targeted to this particular segment. Then we look at their interests, right? We look at a universe of a list of different interests that they're into. And again, we do a similar comparison. What is that comparison? We can see here art, lifestyle, and sports are the top 3. We break it down. So under lifestyle, what within lifestyle is she most interested in? So you've got fashion, we've got a little bit of beauty. So we have the topics of interest. What is the implication here? That means when you're communicating, you can really integrate elements of fashion or design or maybe some beauty content as well if you want to change it up a bit. When it comes to sports, sports is quite high. It's primarily around basketball, right? So here, showing your product being used in the context of a basketball match, or by after a match is done, drink this water or drink this soda for energy. That's when it would really resonate. and so on and so forth, right? I'll just mention a few other things that we can cover or that can generally be covered by digital segmentation. So here we've covered specific interests and hobbies at a topic level. Here we've gone a bit deeper, right? We've gone fashion, beauty, fitness, and this can help you see what are all the different elements that she is interested in. Why is this particular view relevant? Well, because as a person, I'm interested, like, or as you know, any of us, we're all interested in multiple things at the same time. I'm interested in fashion and beauty and fitness and a bit of travel, right? Finance, I engage with it a little bit, but not too much. So this really helps you see what are the top topics that this consumer or this segment really engages with, which becomes a very powerful targeting tool, and it gives you options. So you're not just, if I go back a slide, you're not just focused on one or two, you can really see which one best fits your brand. And within these, we can even go a step deeper. Remember, I had mentioned earlier that brand affinities shows up. So if we look within fashion, because fashion was one of the top interests that we are showing here in the sample, we can see that from the top fashion brands, Guess, Zara, and Coach are really the top, significantly higher than any of the rest, right? Which means these are the top 3 brands that really resonate with them, gives them what they want. If we go a bit into the insights of it, we'd look at, premium or luxury brands within the, middle class segment, perhaps. Looking at food, we can discuss, relevance of healthy food. We can also look at this segment, which is segment 2 versus the overall. If we take an average of all the different segments, we can see that this segment is significantly higher. So having this comparison is really what differentiates or makes segmentation very impactful. You can see specifically what is more powerful for this segment versus others, and hence what can you use to specifically target this segment versus others. And so on and so forth. One thing that I do want to cover, we're reaching towards the end. So one thing that I really would like to cover as well, that's critical when it comes to digital segmentation, is social media behaviors. I had mentioned social media behaviors previously, but one thing that we're able to get here is across platforms, where are they spending their most time, right? So again, all of us use multiple social media platforms. All of us are active on multiple of them. For this particular segment, we can see 2 important information areas here. One is that just overall usage, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat are the top 3 platforms that they use. But not only are they the top 3 platforms that they are active on, they are more active on these 3 platforms compared to the overall, right? What this means is that on Instagram, they are much more likely to be present compared to all the other segments we're looking at. Same thing for TikTok and same thing for Snapchat. This is not to say that other segments are not active on them. It's just this segment is significantly more active. So this is one key element that really comes out in digital segmentation that becomes very important for targeting, for identifying where to target or where to post specific ads, that if you want to target this segment. Another thing is the time of day. So here you've got the breakdown of the different days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as well as the breakdown of the hours of the day. Here, the darker the green, the more active they are. So just at a glance, you can see that, 4 p.m. across most days is when the majority of them post their own content, which means that they are most active at that time. Now, we've excluded, as you can see, several hours from 10 p.m. up until 9 a.m. because there you'd start seeing more of the reds where they're very inactive. And we've just highlighted, where they're most active. So again, this becomes your golden hours to really reach out to them. And one final thing that becomes really important when it comes to influencing them, I had mentioned earlier, influencers. We can identify within this category who are the most commonly followed influencers. So we can see that on TikTok, for example, across categories, these are the most followed influencers. And if we're talking within a specific category like food, these would be the most followed influencers. We can do that for TikTok as well as Instagram. And hence, brands, businesses can really reach out to these influencers to promote their content or to promote their products, right? Or to have, a brand deal with them. And with that, I would, like to conclude this overview on digital segmentation, the benefits, how you can use them, as well as some of the insights and the implication of these insights. So that's it from my end. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. So we had received actually a question earlier that I just received, which is, which countries should a developer focus on when launching their real estate project or product, even if they hadn't initially thought about, a specific country? Or is it better to decide on the target audience or the target countries well before launching? And can AI help assist developers on who to target? So AI can indeed assist developers in determining which countries to target. And it's important to think about this from two perspectives, that segmentation will have to be done at a consumer or end consumer level, as well as the developer or the real estate developer perspective. So within the industry, you need to look at competitors' segmentation. And then as users, you need to look at consumer segmentation. So by looking at these separately, segmentation can then be used to classify specific countries as high, medium, or low opportunity markets. How do we do that? Or how would we recommend something like this? It would be, you could look at the consumers to understand how ready they are to purchase real estate. What are they looking for within real estate, and understand the different segments within that. You can look at, do they understand or are they aware of the current offerings in the market from a consumer perspective? And as well, what are all the different lifestyle benefits, right? Especially for real estate, you're talking about communities. So what are the different community benefits that you'd really require, or that consumers are really looking for? And can you as a real estate developer offer that? Then second, you'd look at your competitors. What are they offering? What is currently there in the market? Is the market oversaturated or undersaturated? And then match these two, right? You know what the market needs, what's the gap in the market, and you've got what consumers are looking for, and you figure out if there's an undersaturation of something that consumers of a specific segment want, that becomes a high opportunity space, for example. So yes, that's one. And then we got another question, which is, how does AI-led segmentation differ from traditional segmentation? So we discussed this briefly, so let me go a bit more specific into that. There are 2 or 3 key elements that differentiate AI-led segmentation or digital segmentation from traditional segmentation. One of the key elements is being able to get trended data. What this means is, because we collect the data online, right? What we can do with let's start with traditional. What typically happens in traditional segmentation is you get the state of the market now and the segments in the market today, right? And in order to track it, or in order to know how it changes, you can only start from today and, check it every 1 or 2 years. And that becomes a very, expensive and long process in order to get any sort of trend. With digital segmentation, what we can do is we do as well get the state of consumers or the segments today, but because historical data is stored online. So we can even go back 1, 2, 3 years and identify the same segment sizes 2 or 3 years in the past. Like I'd mentioned this example earlier, but it's a very relevant example, right? We had a client who who found that one of the segments is very large today. But in reality, when they looked 2 years in the past, which we were able to collect, they found that this is also the biggest segment, is also the fastest falling segment. What this means is if they track it again 2 years from today and they find the trend continues, then they know that this is not the segment that they want to target long term. And this ability to trend it out is very, very important. And it's very critical as a benefit for, segmentation and investment, long-term investment, long-term planning. So this is one of the key benefits. A second thing that I mentioned was it becomes very expensive and time-consuming to do traditional segmentation because you have to repeat the process as it is every single time. The effort from doing it the first time to the second time to the third time, the effort is almost the same. You still need to go out to meet consumers. You still need to look at all of that data and do that analysis independently before you can figure out the insights, especially more so if it's a multi-country project, right? If you're doing it across countries. With digital audience segmentation, first, it is a lot cheaper to set it up because it's a fraction of the price really to set up the algorithms for digital audience segmentation versus traditional. Everything's online. We have, if you have a data science team, they do that all at the back end. So it becomes a fraction of the cost. But not only that, it becomes much faster, right? The first time it would take some time to set up the models, set up the insights and the charts that you'd like to receive. But then every time after that, it would simply be a refresh, right? If you want to see your segment a year from today, you would simply refresh the data to, all the models are already in place. So it's almost like you refresh, then you just run the models at different stages, and the charts are updated or the dashboard is updated. So you get the insights very quickly over time on the same parameters that you're interested in, with some flexibility to adjust these parameters, all right? Because the core of it is already done. So every refresh becomes cheaper and faster, which is quite important. And finally, one key thing between traditional and digital segmentation is the fact that now there's a lot of digital marketing focus because everyone's online, correct? So we get behavioral data using digital audience segmentation, like I showed you with the heat map. When are they most active and which platforms they're most active on? This is based on actual behavioral data. And this is not claimed, it's not biased, it's actual behavior. So this directly impacts marketing decisions on when and where to post, which becomes very critical if you want to target specific segments. Okay, I think this is all the questions that we have for now. I'll be very happy to connect with anyone later on. If you have any questions, you can reach out. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today and looking forward to hearing back from you.